All right, today I'm going to take a look at gold. Um, so far, gold is still stuck in what looks like a triangle consolidation. Most of the time, those are continuation patterns. So the initial move into the triangle was upward, so you would expect that eventually it's going to break higher out of this triangle. Um, I've said this many times before, other than the currencies, the metals are probably the most heavily manipulated market on the planet. The banks are trying to defend the 1750 level. They don't want gold closing above that. They definitely don't want gold closing above this 1764, this high close right here. They want to keep gold from closing above that. Um, if it does, there's a risk that we're going to break out to the upside, and the banks are still trapped in that heavy short position. So if you'll look down here, um, this is kind of typical of a market that's stuck in a consolidation. The RSI, once it gets overbought, it tends to uh, start dropping again. Price starts dropping, but oversold conditions don't embed. So shorts don't make any money either, and we're just bouncing back and forth from oversold to overbought, and nothing gets any follow through. And we may be in store for another move back below this 10-day moving average, maybe to test this lower trend line again before we can break out. I mentioned weeks ago that there was a pretty good chance gold was going to get stuck in a triangle or a box pattern and have to churn sideways for quite a while. And this kind of performs the same function as a correction. It gets people frustrated. Um, a deeper correction, scares people, and that creates the fuel for the next leg up. Um, this sideways doesn't necessarily create fear, but it creates frustration. Traders are impatient for the another move, something where they can make some money, and the market just won't give it to them. And then um, it, once this lasts long enough, and enough people finally just throw in the towel and give up, then that's when the next move will start, and we'll probably break out of this triangle to the upside. But um, there's definitely a possibility here that gold could drop back below the 10-day moving average and test this lower trend line. Moving on to silver, you can see silver is quite a bit stronger than gold. It has, or it was embedded in the overbought condition here on the RSI. That's a strong sign that an intermediate degree advance is in progress. But yesterday, silver hit this resistance zone here right around $19. I was interested to see whether or not it could push through that today. If it did, that would be a sign of an incredibly strong market if it could push through this major resistance zone on the first try, but clearly it's not going to do that. We've got profit taking at this resistance zone happening here. And if gold has to drop down into or test that lower trend line, then um, there's a good chance that silver could come back down and retrace some of this initial rally. But like gold, I think silver is still in an intermediate advance. I think it is going to break through this resistance once um, it takes a couple steps back, gets a little breather, and builds up some more momentum to break through this. Looking at the big picture, you can see, we've got this resistance level at 19. We've got another one here at about 20. And then we've got major resistance, the baby bull high here at 21. Um, I feel pretty good that silver is going to at least reach the baby bull highs before this intermediate cycle tops. So I would be looking to buy a dip in silver. convert this back to the daily chart. I would be looking to buy any dip that can push this RSI back down here to oversold. I think that would clear the bullish sentiment. Sentiment on silver got a little excessively bullish yesterday as we tested this resistance zone. Um, if we can push this RSI back down to oversold, something similar to what happened here, I think that would reset sentiment and set up the next push higher that would ultimately break through this resistance and at least test this next resistance zone here around 20 and maybe even push through that to that major baby bull high resistance at 21. So, in the days ahead, I'm going to keep an eye on this. If this RSI does manage to get down here to oversold, then that's where I would be a buyer to either buy positions or add to silver positions. I do not think this is the top of a final intermediate top in silver. I think we're going to have a much bigger, more explosive move than just this, these two little steps up here before the final top in silver is in for this intermediate cycle, not a final top. And then finally, the miners, kind of the same thing. If gold is if the bankers are going to defend that 1750, prevent gold from getting above that, and then push gold back down to that maybe that lower trend line, then we may get a slight undercut of this low on GDX, push this RSI back down to oversold again, and any undercut of this is going to cause panic. A lot of people are going to sell, and I think again that would clear the sentiment from this first leg up, and then set the stage for another push that could take GDX, at least up to that 39 resistance zone. All right, so here's a big picture look. We've broken out above this resistance here at about, let's just call it 32, broken out above that. Didn't quite get up to this resistance zone here between 39 and 40, and I've mentioned this before. This often happens as you near a major resistance zone. Traders that have been long for a good part of the rally will just decide that they've made enough money and they'll start to take profits, and then you'll get some kind of correction before price actually tags that resistance. And I think that's what's happening here in GDX. So we just had some early profit taking here as we got close to this resistance zone. So GDX is cooling off, but I think the dip buyers will come in, and we're going to at least get a full test of this $39 to $40 resistance zone before this intermediate cycle is complete. So I would be a buyer of GDX if that RSI gets oversold again. Let me convert back to daily chart. All right, so watching the RSI, I like to use the 5-day RSI for these kind of corrections. If this comes back down and gets oversold, I would probably wait for a swing, but that would be the point at which I think I would be ready to buy or add to positions with the expectation that we are going to get a full test of that $39 to $40 resistance zone before this intermediate cycle tops.